Roger that.
Welcome to the first episode of Narrative in Motion. And I suppose I need to give a bit of an explanation of what this podcast and videocast is all about. During these episodes, we'll be exploring the stories, the narrative of our guests, and try and gain an understanding of the journeys and how their stories had impacted on others. My special guest today has served, I should say, in the Royal Air Force as a police officer, is a musician, recording artist, 2 doctorates under his belt, and now the pastor of Jedburgh Baptist Church, Jedburgh in Scotland, and a huge ambition to build a massive retreat project where people can go for counsel, respite and healing through therapy and a shared love of music. If all that wasn't quite enough, he's a broadcaster, videographer, comedy writer, and the list of activities go on. But most of all, I am very proud to say, a good friend of mine. We welcome Pastor Dr. Bob Strachan to the show. How are you?
Greetings, my friend. I'm very well. Yourself?
I'm well. I almost ran out of breath, running out of things to say about you. But
I love that introduction. It reminds me of the guy from that night movie where he goes on and they orates it with Heath Ledger and things like that.
Yeah.
Erlich von Wittgenstein. So I appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. Let's get straight into this plan of yours, Fellowship Valley. Tell us a bit about that, where the idea came from and the challenges of bringing this idea from paper to bricks and mortar.
Sure. Well, it's really have to go back in history just a little bit a ways. We've been in counseling. One of my first degrees was in psychology, and I've been helping people and doing these things for many, many years. But then around 2012, we kind of had a shift in the church. We kind of just realized that the Christianity that we're all brought up with and we're just participating with was just a traditional form. It was real, but there was so much that had been coming in and come into it throughout the years, and we experienced a shift, and so we got rid of a lot of traditions, going back to basics, and said, what's the real here? What's real? What the Christianity that Jesus taught, the Christianity of the Bible? Because a lot of people, when faced with Christianity today, it's not the structure of what the New Testament is. It's conditional. You have to fit the mold. You have to do this. And we're like, that was not what Jesus taught. Jesus told us to love our neighbor and love our neighbor and be good and help people out. And a lot of times people were coming for help, and we see that so many churches are not being able to help people. People are broken. People are desperate, and especially in this climate now, people are reaching out. They're trying to get help. They're in a rut of sorts, and they can't get out of it. They're coming to pastors, they're coming to churches, and they don't know how to help them, which I think is a great shame. And so the people either have to fit the mold and create a new persona, or they're just kind of kicked to the curb, or because these people can't afford to go for £90 an hour professional counseling, which they're going to sit in and they're going to manage the problems. So around that time, 2012, we had a big shift. I started re-looking at psychology, re-examining the things that I thought were real, re-examining the concept of the subconscious. Because this is something we're just told exists. But really, when you get down to it, there's not really, there's evidence, but we could say that so many different things. And re-examining what is the psyche, the term psyche, where we get psychology. And actually, the word psyche comes from psyche, which is the Greek word for soul. And then going back to the Psalms and looking and saying, okay, what is our soul? It is our mind, our will, and our emotions, what we think, what we feel, what we desire. And then we restructured that. We re-looked at that. We didn't restructure the soul. We just looked at what the Bible actually said, and really seeing that the scriptures actually give us a roadmap of healing in that way. Okay. And what David did in the Psalms was what he said to himself, was speaking to my heart, speaking to myself, my soul, my heart, same context, and he said, I commune with my own heart upon my bed. Solomon said much the same thing, and Paul in the New Testament says, speaking to yourselves in psalms, hymns, and spiritual songs. So that gave us an idea that, guess what, there's something in the Psalms that brings healing. And through that, we created a program called the 5 V's. And I'll talk about that later. But this program became really helpful for people because they started to get healing, not just management, but actual healing. We were getting to the root problems of things, and we were seeing healing coming, not just putting these things away, not just this, but actually healing, overcoming, getting rid of the pain, getting rid of anxiety, getting rid of addictions. Helping people with PTSD and things like that, where it wasn't being managed, it was actually being overcome, which
Mm-hmm.
was an amazing new reality. And then and it started to grow. The ministry started to grow. We're getting more and more YouTube followers, more and more people reaching out. And at the point right now we're at is we're able to manage that. We've got a waiting list. So for it to grow any further, we need more counselors. We need more facilities to be able to do this. And my goal is to be able to have someone like in every state, every country or what, that can be a trainer, a train the trainer kind of thing, that they can go to churches, they can train up people in how to do this, and really just bring this idea and this concept to pastors or to people in churches. So when people come to churches, there's someone that knows how to deal with them. They're not having to send them off. They're not having to do that. People that can't afford that, and we do it all for free. We don't charge people because the
Okay.
people that come to us are broken, and some of them are out of work. They're not able to work because of their condition. Our goal is to be able to help them build that back so that they can be part of the workforce again. So the concept of Fellowship Valley came about 2017, where I just had this idea to create a facility. It started with, well, can we build a house that we can have people come and stay in? Because, it's really successful when people are actually coming, we're spending time with them, they're spending time away from, the daily life. If they live in an apartment that's got music coming from all directions, they've got no peace. But somewhere in the Scottish borders, next to a river, a nice flowing stream, just relaxing atmosphere would help. So it started to build from that to where we thought, well, if we could get some land, we could build homes on there. We could offer free accommodation. People could come and stay. We could also build a facility that would allow us to train people in this. We could then use that accommodation for traveling singers, traveling ministers, youth clubs, youth groups, church groups. The amount of times I've been approached by churches in the States saying, can we come to Scotland, bring our youth group? And I'm like, I'd love to. I have nowhere for you to stay.
Yeah.
Put them all in hotels. It's ridiculous. So if we could do something like that, then they could do this. Youth groups. I'll work with the Air Cadets, the RAF Air Cadets, and and that was another potential there, that the youth groups could use the center as well, to have somewhere that is low cost. We would probably expect a donation of some sorts, but underlying it wouldn't be a set amount. And if we were able to have water and power produced by ourselves, this great Scottish water and stuff like that. This, when I go to Costco and the guy's like, "Here, try this bottle of water," I'm like, "I'm Scottish."
Highland
Uh,
Spring. I don't want it. I have one myself. It's a fascinating idea that you're creating here with a community, based around the church. Obviously, being a man of the church yourself, and having that extending that. But you appear to be extending that opportunity beyond the life of the church itself, and it's more about the principle of this healing
it is.
than it is about anything else that surrounds that, or where that idea was inspired by. It's a separate entity on its own. And to get a bigger picture of how this came about, we need to understand your
Sure,
background.
sure.
I briefly mentioned at the beginning of the piece that for a relatively young man, let's face it, you're probably about 8 or 9 years younger than me, and you've done an awful lot so far in your life, and I'm sure we'll do much more. You had such a rich and impressive CV today. Can you tell us about that journey and how that shaped, first of all, your faith, but also your music
Sure.
and all of your creative projects, including Fellowship Valley?
Absolutely. I started life in a little fishing village outside Aberdeen.
Mm-hmm.
And my father used to introduce himself. He said, "I am John Bob Strachan, PhD." And they said, "Oh, you're a doctor." He said, "No, Peter Heed." And but so all my family are from the Blue Toon, as we say, Peterhead. So fishing and navy was the background there.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and my dad married a wee G from Paisley. She was born in Paisley, and she was up in Aberdeen training. So they got together and married, obviously, lived in Aberdeen. That's where I was born, in a small fishing village called Cove Bay. So I spent my youth catching tadpoles and fishing and, swimming in the North Sea. And I must have lost that immunity because I tried it with the kids a number of years ago, and
Too
about
cold.
so it's just like no, but maybe it was warmer back in the 80s. I don't know. So yeah, no, it started that, and then after my father passed away, he died just before my ninth birthday. I'll not get into that, but uh, that was one of the biggest traumas that I've ever dealt with. Thankfully, through my own program, I've been able to overcome that and really deal with that. So a lot of what the program is has been experimentation on myself through these things, but which that's why it's been so effective. So then we moved. We went to New Zealand. We went to Canada. We came back and settled in Stirling, just outside Stirling, where I finished high school, and then went off to university to study sports science, psychology, and the like. Um, when we lived outside Stirling, we kind of got out of church. I'd been raised in a Brethren church in Aberdeen. My dad was lay preacher and very, very active in the church. A very, very godly man. Played piano and all these things. That's one regret. Well, not so much a regret, but something that I would love to do is be able to have played music with him. But I do have some of his reel-to-reels. And so I hope to be able to bring those out and maybe record something over the top of it on an overdub.
That would be amazing.
So that's somewhere I'd love to do. So hopefully be able to do that sometime. Excuse me. But so university, I got back into church. We'd kind of left the church there because it just wasn't fulfilling our needs.
Mm.
It was some of the people were hitting on my mum. She being in her early 30s as a widower, or a widow, sorry, wasn't the best thing. So we kind of left that and had a bit of a bad taste in that. But through university, I joined the Christian Union, met some really lovely people, some weirdos, but that's what happens when you move to Sunderland. You know,
Sorry, everybody in the Sunderland area, by the way, for that.
loved my time there, I have to say.
Sure.
Still shout away the lads. But anyway, that's. But we had great times there. Met a lot of lifelong friends there, and that really got me back in touch, not with church, not with religion, but in touch with Jesus, if you like, within God, with having that personal relationship again. And through that, I then found another church. It was a lot like my old church through playing American football, funnily enough. I got into that in Canada and played in high school, and so found a high school team. I'd played with the Claymores under 18 team as well. That was pretty cool. And so that the one of the coaches there was a minister, and so got back in church. At a church camp, met my wife, but I didn't know much. She was my wife at the time, but we ended up getting married. Obviously, it's always weird when people say that. I met my wife. I'm like, did you know it was your wife? Well, no, I didn't. Well, how did you know it was your wife? I met the woman that would become my wife. Let's say that.
Thank you.
And I actually met her father first, and we got on really well, and we spent a lot of time together. And the reason why Naomi and I kind of gravitated towards each other because they were trying to set her up with a fella from our church, and I had just broken up with a girl, and I was trying to stay away from her. So we kind of got together, and I spent time with her and her family, and they lived in Jedburgh here, and I lived just outside of Stirling, and so you could do the math. Sunderland to Stirling, Jedburgh is in the middle, so I would stop off and sometimes stop off for a couple of days and things like that. So that's how that became. I moved to Jedburgh and after we got married, and we started. I started doing music, working part time and stuff, doing music here for the church, and it just progressed from there. I started doing more and more qualifications, and then I eventually took the pastorate. My father-in-law turned it over to me in 2005. And then went from there, studied for my 2 doctorate degrees, and he passed away 3 years ago. So I've pastored here for 16 years. The church is 30 years old this year.
Wow. Congratulations.
Years. So I've been the pastor for over half of that, which is kind of cool. And we've grown in our YouTube channel. Excuse me. Sorry. grown in her YouTube channel, grown in membership, and done a lot of things. So that's kind of the story of where we're at today. Musically, I've always been involved in music. Always wrote songs from when I was a kid. I
Hmm.
guess it comes from my father and my grandfather. The comedy side would definitely come from him. I think I get my sense of humor from my mum's dad, and the storytelling and the way things. But he was in the Argyll and Southern Highlanders, raised in Paisley. Um, Actually, a story about him. If you might know about the Glasgow fire in the cinema way back when, I think it was about 100 odd, or not quite 90 years ago or something like that. They used to find a jam jar, and they would get a penny for the jam jar, and they would go to the cinema. On that day, he couldn't find a jam jar. Some of his mates were killed in that fire, but because he couldn't find a jam jar.
Wow.
His story throughout the war is filled with these little instances
Where it
of,
could have been
it's
something else.
incredible. And so to see that as a coincidence, I have to see that that really strengthened our faiths in that. And that
Sure.
was he was a major influence, because after my father died, he really took up the role and that. So again, musically, he would rewrite songs like Robbie Burns, "A Fond Kiss," which he then took as "A Fond Kiss, but then I farted. She held her nose as she departed," and things like that. So, um, and the last conversation I had with him was he was watching the spider, and he said, I watched that spider, Robert." He didn't call me Bob. He was Bob, but he called me Robert. He said, "I watched that spider. He went up, he went down, he went across, he went down. And I was waiting for this great, profound Robert the Bruce experience." And he says, and I asked myself, "Do spiders pee?"
It's an important and valid question. I might ask.
I mean, have we ever measured that?
I don't think we have. How would you? Well, let's not get into that. But
And which restroom do they use? It's like,
exactly, it's a
uh,
difficult decision, isn't it?
maybe
And
we,
here we are right now, at this point in your life, with your ambition for Fellowship Valley. You're without a doubt a great communicator and a writer. Whether that's in the pulpit or behind a microphone or sitting here chatting to me at the moment. However, all big projects require more than just one person.
indeed.
You've historically been a messenger, whether it be via your sermon or music. You're a natural storyteller. So, what's your current greatest challenge about the message of what this retreat is all about?
It's trying to share the understanding. A lot of Christians don't think this is necessary, because
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of churches that just think, "Oh, you just need to take this to Jesus, and he will." And it's like that. In essence, yes, that's kind of what we're doing, but it's a lot more complicated than that. Just pray about it. Just read the Bible. It doesn't work like that.
No.
And so it's trying to get the message out there that a person's salvation is only the beginning. Having a relationship with God is only the beginning of sorts. There is a healing journey. It's a lifetime journey of healing, of sanctification, if you want, if you
Mm-hmm.
like. And that's big. A lot of the message we're trying to put out there is a lot of people don't see the need for it. The people that do see the need for it are those that are not churchy. A lot of either non-religious or non-church folks actually see the need for this, because they see that, yeah, people are broken, and who has the answers for this? Does psychology have the answers? Does hypnosis, NLP, do they have the answers? And
Mm-hmm.
although there's management in those things, oftentimes I find that people are going through these things for years and years and years. And a lot of people that come to us have been in these programs for 20 years, but then we can take them through a healing journey in less than 6 months. And it's incredible. And so the message of why this is important needs to get to these churches, and for them to realize it. A lot of people are getting there, which is
Mm-hmm.
great. The second challenge is raising the funds. I mean, we don't have anything physical at the minute. And I personally have the belief that if we can acquire the land, then people will invest, because then they'll see we've got something tangible. Right, here we go. And I get that. We're trying to raise 250,000 to get it all together. That's an enormous figure. It's about the price of a regular house. Where we
Sure.
can, so it's not an astronomical amount. We're not asking for millions. Because we want it, like I was saying before, we want to do solar power, wind power, hydro, get our water from wells, these kind of things, and put in all the filters and things that we need to. So
Yeah.
once it's built, it'll be very low cost, and we can maintain that, and that's why we'll be able to offer it for free. But building it is going to cost money. Getting
Mm-hmm.
the land is going to cost money. Putting these cabins and buildings on there is going to cost. And so, my first goal is to get the land and get people to invest in that. Be able to see people have the potential. We've got loads of people that are ready to come and train and be counseled. So
Sure.
that's an issue. We've got loads of people that are wanting the training. That when the center's there, they're going to come,
Mm-hmm.
and they will help out. But it's getting people involved in the building process. That's where we struggle. I'm not a marketer. I can talk till I'm blue in the face, and if I have a personal chat with someone, we could talk all about that. But
Mm-hmm.
marketing beyond that is where I have really no experience in.
To
It's
gain a
always
further understanding, though, of this and the accessibility, I think it's important to mention here that this goes beyond the people in the church. This goes to everybody and anybody that requires this service or can access this kind of service. Because for me myself, as a person that doesn't particularly associate with any particular religion or faith, but has a spiritual access to this in terms of my own personal will to be a good human being and a good person. Is this available to somebody like me?
Of course it is. I mean, this is going to be a healing center,
Sure.
and not in the kind of new age hippie the thing that a lot of people say. We're going to sit there with candles, and I mean that's great for some people, but not for everyone.
No.
We want to be able to, if someone wants to come and sit by the river and do what they want to do, then it's fine. We're not going to do that. But ultimately, we have the Christian principles, the scriptural principles, and these things.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, we want to bring healing. We want to bring that. There's going to be a spirituality involved in that.
Sure.
So people that are coming for healing, they're going to have to expect some form of spirituality. We're going to have to talk about these things. Because the one scripture we base it on is that Jesus came to bind up the brokenhearted, and it literally in Hebrew means shattered soul, and that's
Mm-hmm.
what we're trying to do. So we really have to bring that into there. However, we want to extend it to youth groups that can have a place to do that. Someone like yourself that can come. If you want to bring a tent and camp, that's fine. It's not going to be a free for all. So it's not going to be a wild camping situation. People would have to book in and availability, because obviously we have to look at the people that are coming.
Yeah.
If someone is coming because they want to get away with it, the last thing we want to do is have 50 teenagers running rampant.
Yeah.
So there'll have to be a scheduling sort of thing. But yeah, we want to make it available to people to come and talk. We want to be able to do music retreats where people can come and learn the craft of songwriting. A lot of people are natural songwriters, but even myself as a songwriter, I still went through coaching to figure out what I was doing right, what I was doing wrong. And it made a massive difference in my songwriting. I can look back at old songs and go, that's good, but I can see how I can change that. We want to do that. Art retreats, nature walks, these kind of things, forestry. There's so many potential, even homelessness. One thing that we used to do is go up to Edinburgh and even Newcastle as well, and give sandwiches and juice and water to the fellas and sit down and talk to them. And I met so many people that were broken. One man that became a personal friend had PTSD from the army.
Mm-hmm.
Although they got him houses, he couldn't live in a house. He had to go back to the street and take care of his men. He couldn't be living in the housing when his men were on the street. And so being able to have somewhere where we could say, you know what, these guys are falling hard times. They're hard workers. Come, we'll help you get you back on your feet. You can work on the land to help us out. So there are so much potential for this. It has to be a project of humanity, not just a furtherance of the church in this way.
That's the golden sentence there, I believe. I think we need to identify this as, because I'll be perfectly honest with you, when I've ever been welcomed to a church, I've always and this is by my own confession, I've always gone with my guard completely up.
I totally understand that.
Completely up. Because I've always had this fear of indoctrination, or the attempt of indoctrination. And what's clear to me from talking to you, couldn't be any further from that. So I think it's important to mention the fact that it's not that at all. That isn't the ethos or intention behind this. Well, not behind, in front of what we got here with this Fellowship Valley plan.
It is the complete opposite of that, because a lot of the people we're dealing with have come out of that indoctrination.
Yeah.
And we as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what the shift was in 2012, is getting rid of the indoctrination of man's teachings.
Yeah.
Of these things. It's like, this is what's been taught, but that's not actually what the Bible says.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and say, oh, we preach the Bible. Well, no, actually, you don't. You preach your own opinion of what it says.
Yeah.
The one thing I want to mention is when people actually come to our church, the one thing that is constant, everyone says, we can feel the love. And it's not being, cliche, but they say, we really feel the love here. We feel like part of a family. And that blesses my heart, because that's what we want to establish. We want this to be a family. It's not, although the word church comes from ecclesia, which means a gathering of people called out for a purpose. It's a local thing. We can also be a family. And like what you said, we want to be further away from that indoctrination. We're doing the opposite. We're helping people undo those cult-like mentalities.
That's beautiful. Sincerely beautiful. And now, finally, let's just talk about something here. If I were to offer my help right this minute, what would be the very best thing that I could do for you right now?
Well, there's a couple of things that we can talk about. The number one thing is spread the word. Just share something, invite people. Fellowshipvalley.com tells you about what we're doing. It explains the 5 E's. It explains the process. It's got all the links. Give us a couple of spins on Spotify. Didn't really talk about the music, but as a songwriter and performer for many years through university and various things, I kind of gave up on that. I got a couple of cuts early on in the 2000s, but kind of left away from that. But through last year's lockdown, really got back into songwriting and want to put the songwriting royalties and things to Fellowship Valley. So everything that comes in from that. Nobody was cutting, so we decided, my coach said, why don't you make your own EP? And if nothing else, I thought, well, it'd be a good demo. And so Fellowship Valley on Spotify, the YouTube channel we've also got a Fellowship Valley YouTube channel. So subscribe on that. These are things people could do for free.
Yeah.
And it's great. And it also helps us out. A couple of spins on Spotify, the YouTube channel, Fellowship Valley, but search for Fellowship Valley Drive, because Fellowship Valley doesn't come up for whatever reason. But I've made driving videos with music around the Scottish borders.
I've seen some of these. They're very, 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 very nice to watch and just to absorb. They're like pieces of mindful driving. We have to add to that, though, that they're not at the actual speed that you were driving. You can't make it from where you live to the border within 10 minutes.
Yeah, this is absolutely true. And that's what I've done. And I want to keep doing that, make river walks and things like that, just being in nature and people seeing these things. Because a lot of people drive that road every day.
Mm-hmm.
And they never take time to look around. And so that's one thing. People can subscribe on that. And obviously, the more subscribers and the more comments, these kind of things, the more hits and YouTube and things like that, these algorithms pay out. So people can actually, for free, help us out just by going on Spotify, going to the website. The ultimate thing it would be donating. People can go to the website, fellowshipvalley.com. They can send us a PayPal donation. They can send us a GoFundMe donation in this way. And really, it is spreading the word, telling their own churches, telling people about that, telling people what we're trying to achieve, and partnering with us in those things. And of course, the added cliche is pray for us with that, with Christian folks. Spare us a thought. Just even folks to reach out if they want to talk about that. I'd be happy to spend time talking to people. And if people have more questions, feel free to go to fellowshipvalley.com and drop us a line from there.
Bob, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure
Thank
to
you
have
so
you
much.
as my very first guest on Narrative Emotion.
Oh, it's been brilliant. And one more thing, if there's artists out there that want to cut the songs, want to hear about country, bluegrass, these kind of things, then, we're looking for cuts as well. So that's all good.
There you go. Superb. Dr. Bob Strachan, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Adam.
Thank
Have
you.
a